For this chapter, it's very, very important. It's probably the most important chapter. Of the book. Because typically 2 free response problems come from this chapter for every AP exam. So I think there's like 5 or 6 free response questions. If 2 of them are from this chapter, that's pretty important. And this is probably one of the most interesting chapters. And it's all about how to organize a survey or how to get information from people. So how I was thinking that we could go about this was if we start with an idea. How much sleep do high school students get on a typical school night? Let's say we'd like this information. We want to know how much sleep high school students typically get on a school night. There's 2 different ways we could gather information. We can ask everyone. That's called a census. The population that we'd be addressing is all high school students. And a census covers the entire population. And I had you look up some things about a census, and there was a lot of good and a lot of bad about doing a census, but there are some problems with asking everyone in a high school. This is a real broad term. In the United States high school system, in the United States and Canada, in the whole world, how would we get all that information? So if we were just talking about United States high school students, that's still a ton of students to try to survey everyone. Some problems with doing a census, they're difficult because picture if we tried to reach every single high school student, okay? The amount of time it would take to do so. Now, let's say like in the United States government, they mail out a flyer. That's pretty expensive. And then when people don't respond, they send someone to their home. Sure, it's giving a lot of job opportunities, but at the same time, it's not really, might not be worth it. It may not be accurate. In the end, if enough people don't respond. And it just may not be able to happen. I can't possibly make a census to reach every single high school student, myself. I cannot do that. It's not accessible for me to do. I don't have the time, the money, or any of those things to make that possibly happen. Plus, all that's like restrictive information. I can't just go to Depew and say, give me a list of all your high school students. That's like classified information. It's confidential. I can't get that information. I can get it for Alden students, but I can't get it for Depew. How am I going to get it for California? Another thing is, what you might have been noticing is that people don't respond. There's this thing called non-response. And that's when a chosen person for a sample or for a census cannot be contacted or refuses to participate, which is what you might have seen if you look this up on YouTube. People are all bucking the whole system of filling out their census. God forbid we infringe on our freedom of speech, and that we don't our freedom of privacy. So a census might not be a good idea because you have to ask every single person. Well, we're in a high school, so we should be able to get a lot of this information if we just talk to our own high school population or part of our high school population. A survey is where you take a sample group of the population that represents the whole population. So if we ask maybe half of our high school students or a quarter of our high school students, we can kind of make an inference of what our typical student's sleep pattern would be on a school night. So a survey should be easy. And there's tons of places you can survey, and we'll talk about that in a second. There's only some problems is it might be difficult to get the right group that does actually represent the population in its entirety. So you want to make sure that we're selecting the people correctly that we want to participate. And there's a lot of different ways where you can select people, the different types of samples you can make. And let's make them over here. So we could actually we can survey online, in the lunchroom. We could send a mailer home to all of the students in the high school. We could call their homes. We could go to the mall and look for high school students. We could go to the McDonald's in town and wait for people to come in and ask them questions about sleep if they're high school students. But think about all of these have limitations. If we pick online, students might have to have a computer to comply. If we look in a lunchroom, then what about those students who I never ate a lunch? I don't know if we have students that are allowed to do this anymore, but I took a class during my lunch. If we mail things home, they've got to bring them back. What if they don't? We could call everybody, but not everybody has a home phone. Would we call their parents' cell phone to ask them about the typical school nights, or the sleep on the typical school night? We could go to the mall and look for the students that are talking, like the high school students, but then we're picking students who are only at the mall shopping. What about those students who don't shop? I mean, you have a lot of other factors in there. What about students who don't have enough money to shop right now at the mall? People that go to McDonald's, some people don't ever go to McDonald's. Well, you'd miss talking to them completely. You'd lose all those people who don't travel to McDonald's. So this is where it's hard to get, difficult to get a group that perfectly represents the whole population. Another way you can sample is to ask for volunteers. Voluntary response. That means people elect themselves to participate. There's a convenience sample, we call it, and that's exactly what it means. It's pretty easy. Convenience. Convenience sample is the same type of thing as like going to the mall and just standing there, waiting for people to come to you. Getting people that are close by. It doesn't take a lot of work to get some people to fill out a survey at the mall, especially if you give away something free with it. You can get people to participate. Might not be the people you want to participate. It might not represent the whole population you're trying to cover, but you get people that way. So that's another thing that we're going to be talking about is what makes a good study and what makes a real biased study. So a bias meaning that you're kind of leaning one way already. Like you have an idea to portray already. And that would be something where if I asked a different question instead of how much sleep do high school students get, if I asked which window for window decorating was best, well, I'm sure 12th graders would say the 12th grade window. They're biased. They want their own to win. 11th graders would typically pick themselves, 11th grade to win. 10th graders would take a 10th grade window probably to win because they are biased. They want their own group to win. Just like when we go to a football game at the Ralph, we want our team to win. We've got that far. We want our team to win. We're biased. There's nothing really wrong with being biased, but we get incorrect answers that way. And then we'll get an incorrect